Welcome back to our series on studio configurations. Last time, we dove deep into a pure hardware Dawless setup. Today, we're going to build on that foundation and evolve it into a much more powerful and flexible hybrid model. Alright, so before we jump into all the new stuff, let's take a quick look back at where we started. It's super important to remember the original Dawless foundation. So you probably remember this diagram from the first video that we called Config C. In this world, everything was hardware. The whole show was run by one of two controllers, the KeyStep Pro or the Digitact, pure hardware bliss. And here's what that actually looks like in real life. The Digitact, the KeyStep Pro, the HydraSynth, and a few other key synths were all wired up right here on this one rack. It was its own little self-contained creative world. But you know how it is if you have a studio. Over on the other side of the room, this second rack was just waiting in the wings, holding a ton of new sounds. A Korg Monologue, an Arturia Mini Brute, a Roland S1, an Alesis sample pad, and the main keyboard controller. Meanwhile, software synths had also expanded, with Pigments and Vital. Which brings us right to the heart of a huge debate among modern producers. Do you stick with that hands-on, tactile feel of pure hardware, or do you embrace the infinite power of software? The real question is, do you even have to choose, or can you have the best of both worlds? Look at this. These two images just perfectly capture those two different worlds. Over on the left, you've got the Dawless setup. A beautiful combination of real knobs, blinking lights, and patch cables. And on the right, that's the hybrid setup, where all that amazing gear plugs into a computer, which unlocks a whole universe of digital tools. So what does a hybrid setup really mean? The whole point is to get the absolute best of both worlds. You get that hands-on, tactile feeling of real hardware, knobs and pads, but you also get the crazy power and flexibility you can only find in a computer. Any combination of hardware, computer, and software is a hybrid setup. Okay, so everything is running smoothly in our Dawless world with 5-pin MIDI cables, but in a hybrid setup, things get really interesting. A new piece of gear is about to enter the studio, and it's going to completely change the game. This new device is, well, it's the missing link. It's the bridge that's going to connect that hands-on, tactile world of hardware with the absolutely limitless, powerful universe of computer software. And this is the piece of kit that's going to make it all happen. Meet the Native Instruments Maschine Mk3. This thing is going to be a bridge which combines the computer with all of our amazing hardware synths and drum machines. This picture really just nails the whole hybrid idea, doesn't it? You've got the physical controller right there on the desk, and it's seamlessly controlling all that powerful software you see on the screen, and it can also play all of the hardware devices as well. Brilliant! The secret to its power is that it has this kind of split personality. In MIDI controller mode, it can operate completely Dawless. It can control other hardware just like the KeyStep Pro. But you plug in a single USB cable and suddenly it's in software integrated mode, and it becomes the key to this massive software ecosystem of sounds, effects, and samples. So let's actually see how this device helps build a totally new, powerful modality for the entire studio. Because we're not just adding another controller here, we're fundamentally changing what this studio is even capable of. So here we go. This is Config D. Right away, you can see, things have gotten a bit more complicated. We've brought in all that gear from the second rack. And if you look on the left side of the config, there it is, our new hybrid brain. The machine is now plugged right into the MIDI network. So the big change here is that the Maschine Mk3 is now a third major control source. It's sitting right alongside the Digitact and the KeyStep Pro. And what that means is it now has the power to sequence and control literally every single piece of hardware in the entire studio. Pretty cool, right? But of course, there's always a but, isn't there? Our particular hybrid setup is not perfect, and it's really important to be realistic and talk about some of the practical limits and choices that had to be made in putting a system like this together. First off, and this is a big one, this whole diagram, it's just for MIDI. It's the control signals, not the audio. We haven't even talked about how you hear any of this yet. Second, all MIDI devices are not created equal. That Alesis sample pad, for example, is USB only, and the mini-log sometimes goes into sequencer mode without instruction. And if you're really paying attention to the diagram, you'll notice that the micro-freak is actually daisy-chained from the mini-freak MIDI through port. That's just a classic real-world workaround when you run out of outputs. You know, these are the kinds of compromises you have to make when you're building out a real-world studio with a budget. So after all that rewiring, does this all actually mean in practice? Have we finally arrived at a setup that really truly aims to be the best of both worlds? Well, for us, the answer is yes. The biggest payoff here is just the sheer sonic potential. The studio is no longer limited to the sounds of just the hardware. It can use them in combination with anything the Maschine Mk3 and the software can offer. Suddenly, you have access to a virtually unlimited library of software instruments, studio-grade effect, and a world-class sampler. The possibilities are just endless. Let's just break down this whole evolution really quickly. The number of primary brains went from 2 to 3. Okay, cool, but the sound palette has exploded from only hardware to a combination of hardware plus unlimited software. And crucially, the workflow still has that amazing hands-on feel, but now you can control both your physical gear and all your virtual instruments the same way. Of course, there's always a trade-off, isn't there? All this new power definitely brings some new complexity with it. We've been focused on MIDI, the control signals, but what about routing the actual audio from all these hardware and software sources? That's a much bigger challenge and definitely a topic for another day. Ultimately, it all comes back to this one powerful idea. You get to keep that joy of twisting real knobs and playing physical keys and pads, but you get to pair that experience with the infinite sound-making power that only software can provide. I mean, that's a seriously powerful combination.